My name is Donna Leon. I am a crime writer who very happily writes for Heinemann. And they've recently published, and I some time ago wrote, a book called The Golden Egg, in which my protagonist, Guido Brunetti, who's a commissario di polizia in Venice, is much caught up in the investigation of the apparent suicide of a seemingly mentally deficient young man, middle-aged man actually, in Venice. I say instinctively that he's a young man because he's somehow affected by mental weaknesses and is thus all of his life treated like a child. And Brunetti becomes intrigued by the idea that he might have committed suicide, and it doesn't make sense to him that someone of apparently deficient mentality would think of the idea of suicide. And so, quite privately, he starts to investigate the death of this young man and comes to discover that the guy never existed, that there's no birth certificate, there's no residence permit, there's no trace of him in the schools or in the medical system, and this just doesn't make any sense to him. And so he continues the investigation of this person's existence and non-existence. And the book is really about language. The book is about the importance of language in terms of our humanity. Am I a disciplined writer? I am not a disciplined anything. I write when I'm at home, either in Switzerland or in Italy, and I know that I have 10 days ahead of me in which I do not have to travel. I'm involved in the management of a Swiss opera orchestra, and so I spend a lot of time traveling with the orchestra, going to concerts, going to recordings, going to visit both musicians, singers, and sometimes the other managers of the orchestra, and so I spend a lot of time traveling. But when I have security of 10 days, 2 weeks, then I will sit and do nothing but work for that period. And work means 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night, with breaks, of course, to go out for coffee or go out for lunch. But then in those very infrequent times, I am very, very disciplined. But that's when I manage to do the bulk of the writing. No, my writing never scares me, no. It's very hard to scare me, probably because I live in a peaceful city where very little that is scary happens. No, it's always fun. And if it weren't fun, I wouldn't do it. The main character is Guido Brunetti, who is a man in his 50s, happily married, successfully married to a woman he loves beyond reason, who is a university professor of English literature, which allows me to show off by making references to English literature, which I spent my life studying and teaching. They have 2 kids who are decent kids. He's a man who has arrived at a position where he has an ethical system and must work within a system, a political system, and a criminal investigation system, which might not have the same kind of ethics that he has. And so there's very often dissonance between what he perceives as justice and what his society perceives as justice. And he investigates various crimes, usually murder, and there is, because he's in Venice, there's the conflict or the contrast, or the dissonance between the beauty of his surroundings and the ugliness of what he does on a day-to-day basis in his job. And he's a good guy. He's an educated man, he's an intelligent man, and he reads a lot. He reads Roman and Greek history primarily, as do I. I write my books either in Switzerland, at my house in the mountains, or in Venice, in one of those 2 places, at a desk with a computer. I don't take notes in cafes, I don't take notes on trains. I'm afraid that I have to confess that I very seldom think about them at a conscious level, unless I'm actually sitting at the computer working.